welcome everyone. So we'll begin. So we have a few things to go through today. We're going to talk about virtual speech contests and how they are the same and how they differ from an in-person speech contest. We're going to talk about what we need to do as judges and ballot counters to prepare ourselves for the contest. We're going to go through the contest briefing and dry run session. Then we're going to talk about what happens immediately after the contest when the ballots are to be submitted and being counted. And then hopefully we'll have lots of time for questions at the end of the session. So to start with, if you look at the rule book says that all speech contests must be held in person. But we're in a different era these days, the era of COVID-19, and it's no longer possible for us to hold an in-person speech contest. So in August 2020, the Toastmasters International Board of Directors announced that because of the pandemic, all speech contests at the area, division, and district level must be conducted online. And so this year, District 99 will be holding its speech contests at the area level and above online using the Zoom format. At the club level, you can still hold an in-person contest if you meet the provincial guidelines, or you don't even need to have a contest at the club level. You can appoint a speaker from your club to represent your club at the area level. Now, while that is possible, I would say that it would give a disservice to your club if you didn't hold a contest, because the contestant should become familiar with the contest environment. And if their first exposure is at the area level, it might add another degree of uncertainty to them. We're trying to make this, and we hold these contests for the benefit of our members. So we really want to ensure that they're given every opportunity to succeed. There are a number of similarities between both an in-person and a virtual speech contest. In an in-person contest, we ask the judges and ballot counters and timers to arrive early for the briefing and to get their forms so that they have what they need for the contest. The same thing happens in a virtual contest, except that you're not actually meeting together in the same location. So it's going to take some coordination to facilitate the briefing and the exchange of the necessary forms. And because of that, the district has mandated that at the area level and beyond, a separate briefing meeting should be run a few days before the contest. That gives plenty of time for the contestants, the judges, and all of the helpers to get properly briefed about the contest, because there will be some questions and there will be some things that need to be facilitated to ensure that the contest runs smoothly. And most importantly, it's an opportunity to have a dry run to make sure people are familiar with the technology and can use it. Once the contest starts, whether in person or virtually, the contestants will compete. In the virtual setting, you won't be seeing them in person, but you will be seeing them on your screen. After the contestants have all finished, there's the collection and counting of ballots. That happens both in the in-person contest and the virtual contest. However, in the virtual contest, the ballot counters aren't going to be driving around the city collecting ballots from all of the judges. They will be submitted electronically, and counted electronically. But the process is the same. It's just the methodology that's being used that's different. And of course, at the end of the contest, whether in person or virtual, a winner is announced. So really, the rules of the contest are the same, whether it's in person or virtual. It's just the form that has changed. As you prepare for a contest, there are certain key success factors. I would suggest that if you haven't already done so for the club and area levels, to recruit your contest officials early. Make sure you know who all of the officials are so that you're not scrambling at the last minute looking for people. There is great resources available to you on the D99 website. If you go to the District 99 website and click on the link for speech contests, there are a lot of resources available to you that you can look at. We had a task force that was appointed by the district that prepared a handbook on running a successful virtual speech contest. I don't want to brag because I was on that task force, but I think it was a pretty good product at the end, and I hope it's of value to the clubs. Another key success factor is to recruit backup officials. In case technology fails, we want to make sure that there's backups in place just in case. So if you're a judge and all of a sudden you lose connectivity during the contest, you should have a backup judge just in case that can step in and judge the contest in place of that judge that is no longer able to participate because of a connection problem. Same thing with timers and ballot counters and the like. It's important that everyone that's participating in the contest knows how to get onto the contest. As I mentioned earlier, the district has mandated that at the area level and beyond, that we use the Zoom platform for our contests. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, I would suggest that you start becoming familiar with Zoom. We're using Zoom tonight, so obviously we have some familiarity with the platform. But ensure that all the officials have the proper Zoom links and passwords for the contest that they will need to get on to first the briefing session and then the contest itself. It's very important, if you've agreed to be one of the officials in the contest or a contestant, that you attend the briefing session and dry run. It's important to practice so that you know what you're going to do ahead of time. And when it comes to the actual contest, things will move smoothly as a result of that. So let's talk about what you will need to do to prepare for the contest if you're a chief judge or one of the voting judges. As a chief judge, you should review the Toastmasters contest rulebook. At least be familiar with the rules for the international speech contest. This year, the district has mandated that the only contest that goes to the area level or beyond is the international speech contest. That doesn't preclude the clubs from holding an international speech contest plus one of the other contests available. But it's only the international speech contest that will go to the area level and beyond. As a chief judge, it's also important that you have access to the forms that everyone will need during the contest. And I mean that in terms of, as a chief judge, you'll need to have the judge's certificate of eligibility and code of ethics form, the International Speech Contest Judges Guide and Ballot, and the tie-breaking judge ballot, the speech contest time record sheet, and the counters tally sheet. The chief judge is responsible for briefing the judges, the timers, and the ballot counters. So as a chief judge, make sure you have those forms available that you can distribute in advance to your contest judges, timers, and ballot counters. The forms are all available on the Toastmasters International website, but they're also available for you to download through the District 99 website as well. The forms have been updated by Toastmasters International, so they're now in a fillable PDF form, which will make it a lot easier to submit in an electronic setting, which I find is very, very handy. As a chief judge, you're going to need to know the contact information for the people that you are going to be dealing with directly. You'll need to know the names of all the judges, ballot counters, and timers, their cell phone numbers so that you can text them in the case of a situation that arises during the contest, and their email addresses as well. With respect to the tie-breaking judge, you as a chief judge are responsible for picking someone as the tiebreaker, but you're the only one that will actually have contact with the tie-breaking judge. The tie-breaking judge will email you their ballot form after the contest to you directly, and you will only refer to it in order to break a tie if necessary. None of the other judges will know who that tie-breaking judge is. The tie-breaking judge will remain anonymous from all of the contestants and other officials as well. And then once you have all of this contact information, you should provide this list to the Zoom master for the meeting so that the Zoom master knows who all of the participants are and can ensure that they're all allowed into the meeting and put into the appropriate breakout rooms at the appropriate time. So it's important to get that contact information out as quickly as possible so that you have that as a chief judge. Before the briefing meeting, I would, as a chief judge, recommend that you distribute the judge's certificate of eligibility and code of ethics form. I have a picture of it on my slide. I'm sure if you've judged before, you're familiar with this. This form is also available in a PDF, so you can digitally sign it. Once you've downloaded it, save it. You can then email it or text it back to the chief judge before you have the briefing session. It's better if this is done ahead of the briefing. Or you could be old-fashioned and just print it out, sign it by hand, scan it, and email it back to the chief judge. It's up to you as to how you would like to submit the form. But like I say, Toastmasters has now made it a fillable PDF form to make it easier for you if you should choose to do it simply electronically without actually printing out the form. And some people may not have access to a printer. So it's really, really easy to do this online without ever having to actually print out the form and sign it by hand. Digital signatures will work. If you are asked to be a voting or a tie-breaking judge, there's also some preparation that you will need as well. You should complete the certificate of eligibility and code of conduct form as soon as possible. and then send it back to the chief judge. You're also required to read the rule book yourself so that you familiarize yourself with the rules and especially any changes to the rules that have occurred in the last year. One of the main changes to the rules in the 2021 rule book is with respect to eligibility. Now, a contestant can be disqualified if he or she references another contestant by name or what they spoke about in that contest. So if one contestant made a point and then later on in the contest, another contestant refers to that point, they will be disqualified from the contest. So that's a new rule this year that has just been put into the rule book. I thought I was going to be also talking about the timers. So if you are asked at the club level or area level to be a timer, make sure you download the timing backgrounds from Toastmasters International as a way of preparing. So that's the preparation. Then we come to the day of the contest briefing and the dry run. This is an opportunity for us to practice the collection of and submitting of the forms that we will be using during the contest itself, as well as the actual briefing that would take place if this was an in-person contest. So the chief judge will go over the same rules with the timer and the ballot counter and the judges that they would do in an in-person contest. It would just be done over the Zoom. The contest briefing and dry run should occur in the week prior to the contest. And this is more important for the contestants than it is for the judges, the ballot counters, and timers. But for the contestants, it would be a good idea to hold the briefing session at the same time of day that the contest will actually take place. For the judges, this isn't important because it doesn't really matter the lighting situation. During the contest, your cameras are going to be off, so no one will know if you're in bright light or in complete darkness. But for the contestants, it does make a difference. Part of their briefing session is to test their speaking area, their lighting, their microphone, their camera. And to do that properly, you really need to try to simulate the conditions that will occur during the contest itself. So if your contest is at 7 p.m. at night and you're holding the briefing session a couple days before, it should be at 7 p.m. at night so that similar lighting conditions will be available to the contestant during their briefing. Logistically speaking, the briefings of the judges and the contestants will probably be happening at the same time, just in separate breakout rooms. But the timing of the briefing session is most important for the contestant than the judges. The judges can have a separate briefing any time of day as long as they're all available for attending that. It's during the briefing session and the dry run that we practice and test our technology. If we're familiar with how the process works, how we're going to be submitting our ballot forms, how we fill them out, then it makes for a smoother contest and a better experience for our contestants. So prior to the briefing, as chief judge, I would be distributing the forms to the judges, the counters, and the timers. And that will be done. I will do that myself as chief judge by email. I'll email all my judges, my counters and timers, and provide them in advance of the briefing session the forms that they're going to need for the contest and also for the briefing, because we're going to practice during the briefing filling out forms and sending them to the chief judge and ballot counters so that people are familiar with that. As I said, all the forms are in a fillable PDF format, so they can be signed electronically, they can be saved to your system, and easily attached to an email or a text message and sent to the chief judge. One of the things, if you're a judge, that you're going to have to be aware of is the renaming conventions. Judges, according to the rule book, are supposed to remain anonymous. And therefore, when you attend the contest, you're going to be renaming yourself Judge 1, Judge 2, Judge 3, etc. So the chief judge is going to tell you how to rename yourself. I will prepare, when I have my judges all picked for my contests, I'll prepare a list and I will say, Carol Lowen, you are going to be judge number 1. And David Biddiscombe, you're going to be judge number 2, etc. And that way, we're not all, if I gave everyone an option, most people are going to call themselves judge number 1. And there's no way of us differentiating who judge number 1 is and judge number 1 is. So because of that, as chief judge, assign the judges their numbers. During the contest, and even when they enter the contest, have your camera and microphone turned off. And it should remain off right up until the conclusion of the counting of the ballots. At the end of the contest, it'll be okay if you turn your camera on at that stage. But even then, before you turn the camera on, rename yourself so that you will continue to remain anonymous. People will just think that you were one of the audience members during the contest. One of the things that happens in Zoom is when you turn your camera off, if you've enabled a picture, a profile picture, then your picture will be there and people will know who you are, even though it'll say underneath your picture, judge number 4. So make sure that you disable your profile picture as part of that renaming. I've never learned how to put a profile picture on my Zoom account, so I don't have to worry about that. But there are a lot of people that do have profile pictures. Disable that so that you can remain anonymous. And they'll be naming conventions also for the timers and the ballot counters as well. So let's talk about the process for submitting the judges' ballot forms. If you've already done so and downloaded a copy of the form, you will see that it looks like a regular ballot form that we're all familiar with if we've been judging speech contests. The top part of the form is where you fill in all of the scores for the contestants, and the bottom part of the ballot form is the part that in an in-person meeting you rip off, you write in who's first, second, and third place, you sign it, you hold it up for the ballot counter to pick up. In the virtual world, it's going to work a little differently. So I would recommend that when you're getting the forms, to print them out. While they are in a fillable PDF format, one of the things that I feel would be a problem for me as a judge using the fillable form to score the contestants' marks is that when I judge, I will judge the contestants against a standard of excellence, my own objective standard of what is the perfect speech. And once I've ranked all of the points, I will fold my ballot form and obscure those marks for when the next speaker speaks. So I'm not comparing the speakers against each other, I'm comparing them according to a standard of excellence, which is in fact what we're supposed to be doing when we're judging a speech contest. I find that if you're filling in the ballot scores on the fillable PDF, you really can't obscure the form to see what you've given other contestants. And that might sway how you judge the contest. So for me, and this is the way I will do it, I'll print out the form, just like it's a regular contest. I will fill in the scores on the sheet. I will fold it over, next contestant, fill in the scores, fold it over, next contestant, and then at the very end of the contest, I'll tally up all of the scores for all of the contestants and pick who I scored as the first, second, and third place winner. Then I can go to the fillable PDF form and fill out the bottom part of the ballot form as to who I picked as first place, second place, and third place. I can electronically sign that form, and then I can save it and submit that form electronically to the chief judge and the ballot counters. And I will have been provided the email addresses or cell phone numbers if you're going to text those ballot forms in by text, so that you know where to send them to and how to properly attach the forms to your email or your text message. So that'll be the process. Now, if you choose to fill in the form with the scoring in a PDF format, just remember that when you're submitting your ballot form, we don't want to see your scores. The chief judge only needs to know who you picked as a first place, second place, and third place winner. Don't provide the scores. So if you're going to do the scoring on the PDF form, I would recommend that you actually have two ballot forms open, one for the scoring and one to submit as your official ballot, so that you're not submitting your scores to the chief judge and the ballot counters. So that's the process for submitting the judges' ballots. So we're going to practice that. I asked you to download a ballot form. I want you to just make up some names, sign the ballot form electronically, and then email it to yourself. And then check that you got that email and that you were able to properly fill it out. So I'm going to change screens. And I'm hoping that everyone sees the International Speech Contest form on the screen. Carol, is that what you see?
No, I'm just seeing practice judges' ballots.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. And then I'll share my screen again with. All right, now do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to zoom in. The ballot form is very same. It's the International Speech Contest ballot. Make sure that it is an International Speech Contest ballot form that you have and not one of the other contests, because the criteria per contest does differ. So let's assume that I've filled in the contestants' names. All right, we have four contestants in the contest. And so I've listened to Mark's speech, and he was pretty good in speech development and structure. So I'm going to give him, whoops,
Yeah. Okay.
17 points for that. And effectiveness. Now, one of the things that people ask is, how does one judge interest and reception when you don't see other people's reaction in the audience? They're going to have to, you're going to have to judge it based on your own reaction. So Mark's speech was pretty good. I'll give him 12 points for that. And his ideas and logic, original thought, it wasn't the most original speech I've ever heard, but you know, it was presented in a good manner. I thought he did very well on his body language. It was a little hard to hear him, so I'm going to give him a 6 for that. And manner, I thought he was pretty enthusiastic. There were a couple of slang words that he used in his speech that may not have been appropriate for the speech. And so I'm going to mark him a little down on that. And there were a couple of grammatical issues as well. So we're going to do that. So after all of the contestants, then I can count the ballots and all of that. I'm not going to do it for everyone. This is just an example of how the form can be filled out online if that's your choice. So I've now counted all my ballot forms, and lo and behold, Carol, you got more points than anyone else. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then Brenda White, and then Mark Smith was my third place person.
Oops, something happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Your PDF disappeared. Oops.
I am going to digitally sign my form. Now I have to remember a password.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, I can't remember what my password was. Anyway, it allows you to do that, digitally sign it. Let's assume that I did that. Then I'll go ahead, I'll save my form. and then I can attach it to an email. No, I don't want to sample. Then I can attach it to an email and send it to myself.
Okay, where was the email?
Oh, I will then go into my email program, attach it, and send it to myself.
Okay.
So I have to stop sharing and then share my email program. And so I'm going to email myself. And then attach my email.
Yeah, you had it under sample or something. Yeah, there you
Yep.
go.
There you go. I've now sent it. And there you go. So that's how I would do it. So why don't you practice sending yourself one so that everyone is familiar with how it's done?
So I haven't downloaded the PDF forms. Oh, now I've lost you. Oh, shoot.
Hey, Michael, you mentioned sharing it, sending the ballot via email or text. You also do it via private message through the chat room?
I would, in fact, we discourage sending it by private message through the chat room because a lot of the contests may be recorded. And when you record something, it actually records the private chats. And so someone could go into the recording and actually intercept the ballots.
Oh, I got lost somewhere.
So I'm hoping everyone is seeing my practice judge's ballot screen.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Good.
I hit something and got it way out and then back to your judge's practice ballot vote picture is all I've got.
Okay. So when you open the ballot form, it'll open up into a different screen. And you may just have to hit your Windows button at the bottom to switch screens.
Your options.
You won't see me at that point. You'll still be able to hear me.
I can hear and see you, but I can't get back to that ballot form. I'm going to have to download all those PDF forms.
Okay.
Michael, I see the form is a little bit small for me. How do you make it bigger?
You use the Zoom.
Where's the Zoom?
Oh, good. Somebody else.
Oh, I see. I got it.
At
Thank
the
you.
bottom, at the top, there's a magnifying glass.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Anyone else having problems or having questions about how to fill out the form and send it?
Yeah, Michael, I couldn't find where the form was. I've played with it, but I'm not sure where it's saved. And so to email it to myself, I can't find it to attach.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in your downloads.
Yeah, no, it isn't. It went
No?
there. It's supposed to be, but no.
So
if
pay
you
attention to what you're saving it to, what folder. You,
Yeah.
you
It
saw
did
when
say-
I saved mine,
Yeah.
I saved it to as a sample in my Toastmasters folder, so I
Ah.
know where it is.
so when you click on the link in the chat window and you get the on the PDF, when it gives you the option, I think it gives you a save, and I think you can do save as. And if you do save as, you get a chance to specify which folder you want to
Yeah.
put it in. Now, if you want to know where it was before, you can click on the link again. And I think if you do save as, no, I'm not sure. I was going to say if you do save as, the folder that it shows you when you do that would perhaps be where it went.
Okay. Lionel, you had a question?
Yes, I do. You
Sure.
said that at first we don't need to send all that information to the chief judge. How can I send only the results?
Okay. There's a couple ways that you can do it. You can use separate form for your tally and for your results. You can print out a version of the form and do your marking by hand on the form, and then just fill in your results on the electronic version.
Yeah.
Or you can fill out the form electronically, detach the bottom part of the form like you would in a regular contest, and take a picture of it,
Yeah.
and
can
then
do that.
send a picture as well. So there are various different methods.
See, Michael, the challenge I have is I don't use a cell phone for any of this stuff. So I have to do kind of everything manually on the computer without losing it.
Right. And
I'm feeling at a real disadvantage right now.
Usually that would be the way I would do it as well. As I'm much more comfortable with email than I am with my
Yeah.
cell phone and texting and all of that.
So for this option then, Michael, it sounds like the first option you gave of using multiple copies of the form
Right.
would work for Carol.
Yeah. I think Carol, because Carol's judged hundreds of times.
Well,
Carol,
yeah,
I would print out one copy of the form.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do that for your marking. And
Yep.
then have another version open on your computer. So once it's time for you to tally and submit your form, then you can type in the information on the form.
Yeah. So I'm going to set up a different file for Toastmaster contests and then
Yeah.
put all my downloadable forms there so that I can find them faster.
Exactly.
Otherwise, my Toastmaster file is just too big.
Yeah, I've had to set up many different directories
Yeah, no, that'll.
for Toastmasters, all the clubs I belong to, and for judges training and speech contests and all sorts of stuff. So are there any other questions? How many people? Go ahead.
Yes, how do you add a digital signature? I just tried on the example form and I don't see how you add it.
Oh, I didn't. I got to the point where it said digital signature. I had to create it, and it would take a little too much time to show it in this format, so I didn't.
Can you just use a different font?
No, it signs it digitally. See this?
Yeah.
How do you get that?
That's the digital signature. And on the ballot form, it says sign here. And if you press that, it will actually open a box for you to digitally sign.
So you just key it in like you did on your name.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
if you've not set up the digital signature, then it'll ask you to set it up.
So you can't just key in your name then, if you haven't set up a digital name.
I'm not sure. I think I'm going to try. I'm going to do that on, you may not see this. Now, as soon as I click the box, Carol, it requires me to do a digital signature.
As soon as you click what box?
The signature of Judge box.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I click on it, nothing happens.
Oh, you need,
Michael, can I ask a question? It's
Sure,
Renee here.
Hi, Renee.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a little bit of experience with Adobe and creating digital signatures. And what you'll have to do is you actually have to create it. So you have to tell Adobe, this is who I am. And it may ask you, do you want to have a password every time you use this? Which is why, Michael, you were prompted for a password, but you don't need to. So what it is it's your signature. So it's your name, and then Adobe, the PDF handler, says, yes, this is the person who put their name on here. This is the date. This is the time. Now, for Carol and who was the other person who was just speaking, David, can you, when you type in that, can you just type your name in that box?
In the signature box?
Yes.
Because I don't have Adobe.
That's okay, Carol. 1 minute here. David, can you type your name in there?
I'm just checking that now. Just give you. Just right now, just check. No.
When I tried, it required me to insert a digital signature.
Like the
Yeah,
first place, second place, third place are fillable fields. The signature of Judge, it is not a box I click on. There's like not even enter my name there.
Okay, so there's a couple of different limitations that could be in effect here. If you don't have an Adobe license on your computer, are you opening it through a browser? Like, is it an internet window?
I just clicked on the thing that Michael said it opened. I downloaded and opened it from there.
So it opened up right off of your system, your computer, right?
I opened it up through the email address that was on the email that came from D99.
Okay, so yours, Carol, may have opened through the browser, which means you can't edit it at all until you download it. Do you want to try downloading it? There should be a little icon up in the top right-hand corner with like a little picture of a down arrow and then a line, and that'll be your option to download.
I get view options. Okay, view, standard side-by-side, speaker, side-by-side gallery, or exit full screen. That's all I get on.
That's the view for the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment here, Carol. I'm going to take a look. What was the title of the email that had these handouts initially? It was sent in advance to us, right?
It was part of in the chat box.
Yeah.
No, Carol said she got it from an email though, right?
Yeah, it was. Okay, I'm going to do this and I might lose everybody, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
It was, the email was sent on 342. It was D99, no, yeah, D99 something, because I couldn't get in. So it must have been D99 Online Speech Contest Bootcamp.
That would have been the Eventbrite reminder.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So at the very start of the session, in the chat window, I posted the link to the International Speech Contest judges ballot.
Okay. I'm
I'm
just
hoping other
getting more
people have
lost.
been having success in terms of completing their ballot forms. That's the whole purpose of the.
I have a question.
Yeah, Glenn.
When we're talking to judges, are we going to give them the option of doing it digitally or manually?
You mean for the International Speech Contest ballot?
No, I'm just thinking of the time we're spending on this just to get it correct.
Yeah.
And if you're in a contest,
No.
you don't have that time.
Right, and that's
It's,
that's why we're doing this in this format, and
Yeah.
and why the briefing session is so important.
Yeah.
That you know.
But I'm just
So some suggestions here. This is Richard. I agree that this is taking up some time. For those, some people might opt, like one of the options Michael gave was you could sign it, like have a physical copy and sign it and take a picture of that and send. That's one option. I think since you're sending by email, what I would say is if anyone here is having trouble on the day, or if you're a chief judge and your people are having trouble getting it signed, I would suggest, and Michael, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I would suggest that they send it, because their form coming with their email is tied to them. So, but I know that the rule requires that it is signed. And then to what Renee was trying to show, I think Renee is correct. If you have a license, I think it allows you to do the digital signature. Like when I sign documents, there's another way I do it, which is Adobe allows me to save like my signature as an image, and if the form is fillable, I'm able to drag the signature on to the signature spot. But again, people with different varying levels of experiences will have difficulty, right? So I would say if you're having lots of difficulty with this process, maybe opt for signing it and sending an image of it, sending an image of the form to the when you're submitting it. And if all else fails, if you can type your name on it, I don't know, and send it.
Always gets me excited to see the presentation again. But as Jordan
I
said,
think
I'm currently
what we're seeing and what's very important to keep in mind is the practice, so that we become familiar. And when I'm doing, as a chief judge, my briefing session, I'm going to be going through this and spending a lot of time so that my judges are comfortable with getting their ballot form to me at the appropriate time. And so if we work out the kinks in the briefing session and the dry run, then when the contest happens, it can be done a lot smoother. And we're learning. So I know we're running out of time. So let's carry on. The next few slides were with respect to the timer, and they're being briefed in a different session tonight. So for the ballot counters, they will also be getting emails that have all of the judges' ballot forms attached. And that's really for backup purposes only, in case one of the emails doesn't go to the appropriate person, but it somehow gets to a ballot counter. we have that backup in place. During the counting process, the chief judge will announce the name of the judge, who that judge had as contestant number, the first place, second place, and third place contestant. The first place contestants get 3 points, second place 2, and third place 1. And then the points are tallied for each of the contestants. And then, just like in a normal contest, a winner can be determined. The only difference is the counter tally sheet is a fillable PDF form and can be done online. So we don't have time to practice the counter tally sheet right now because we have about 7 minutes left. So a couple of things. During the contest itself, the timers should have their cameras on so that the contestants can see them, and they should be using timing backgrounds, and the contestants will pin the timers to their computer screens. At the start of each contestant, the contest Toastmaster will ask the contestant 2 questions. Are you ready? And can you see both timers? Then the contestant will be introduced. That initial part is not timed. Timing begins with the first definitive communication with the audience. Now, if a contestant loses their internet connection during their speech, the timer will stop the time, and hopefully the contestant will be able to regain their connection. That if they do, they will be allowed to start speaking right from the point where they lost connectivity. So if their last word was like, then when they come back on, they start right from that point and carry onward. And the timing starts right at that point in time. They don't get extra time for that loss of connectivity. The timers use backgrounds with backup cards just in case of a failure. So when you're judging, there's a few things that you have to keep in mind. The speaking area of the contestants is different in a virtual contest than in an in-person contest. Speaking area is the frame in which the camera shows the contestant. So they need to be able to be visible within the screen. For the purpose of a contest, looking at the camera is considered direct eye contact with the audience. Do not consider the quality of the camera or their microphone in judging the contestant. Some contestants will have access to much higher quality equipment than others. That is not a factor in your judging. You're judging the contestant based on the criteria in the ballot form. Quality of their camera and microphone is not to be considered. However, if you can't hear the contestant, that may affect your judging in terms of vocal variety and the like. Remember that you're not going to be able to see the contestant's whole body. You will probably see them only from the waist up. So that is entirely appropriate when you're looking at marking for gestures, because you're not going to be able to see their whole entire body. You'll also not be able to see the rest of the audience to determine the audience response. For the purpose of this contest, you are the audience, and when it comes to interest and reception, you have to rely on your own feelings in determining that scoring. During the contest, as a judge, you make sure that you're anonymous, ensure that you have the proper ballot forms, and if you have a problem, text the chief judge if you lose connectivity so that the chief judge can make appropriate, can contact the backup judge to let them know you're now on the hook. It's also, protests should be lodged with either the chief judge or the contest chair. And the best way to lodge a protest would be through a text message. That's why it's important for everyone to know the appropriate phone numbers and email addresses. After the contest, so immediately after all the contestants have completed their speeches, the contest Zoom master will assign the chief judge, the voting judges, the timers, and the ballot counters into a separate breakout room. At that point, that the timers will submit their completed ballot forms to the chief judge and ballot counters. And once the timers have successfully submitted their forms, chief judge will say, I've received your forms. You can now exit the breakout room and return to the main meeting room. And similarly, that's the opportunity for the judges to complete their ballot forms and submit them to the chief judge and ballot counters. And the chief judge will then confirm that they've received your ballot form, and then you can leave the breakout room and return to the main meeting. Once all of the timers and judges have left the room, the chief judge and the ballot counters will be the only ones remaining in the breakout room, and that's when the ballots will be counted. Counters are required to keep the results a secret unless the winners were announced incorrectly during the announcement of the results. Then the ballot counter can say, excuse me, there was a different winner or the like. And after the ballots are counted and the winner determined, the chief judge and the ballot counters return to the main meeting room for the remainder of the meeting. All right, so we're going to be moved very quickly into our mock contest. And I need a couple volunteers to act as my judges for the mock contest. So Renee, would you be one of my volunteers since you're familiar with the ballot form? And is there someone else that would be willing to do that? How about you, Glenn? I can't.
Muted. Sure, I'll try.
Okay. And I also need 2 ballot counters. So 2 people that can help me count the ballots at the end of the mock contest. So you'll just need to have been able to, okay, thanks, Lionel. And is there someone else?
I can help you, Michael.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. All right, so we will be shortly moving to the main meeting room. Are there any questions before they kick us out? And thank you, Renee. Thank you, Richard, and everyone. Lionel, you had a question?
Yes, there's 2 timers. Are they both going to send the time to the chief judge or only one?
In the virtual contest, we asked them both to send it just in case there's a failure with timer number 1. that we have a backup.